Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Wait, What? I'm Howie the Heathen, and today I want to talk to you about two themes that will repeat very often in my podcasts: willful stupidity and cultural stupidity. I used to spend time worrying about what would happen when extraterrestrials land and find out what we're all about. I no longer think it's going to happen. Not because they aren't out there and fully capable of getting here. They probably are and they probably can. It's more because they're likely to tune in first, save gas, listen, and watch from a safe light-year distance. They're going to see Housewives of Atlanta, Jersey Shore, Howard Stern, Kim Kardashian, and the Take Me to Your Leader guy, Donald Trump. Then they're going to shoot alien Bud Light out of their noses and conclude that we're much too stupid to bother with. Think about it. Why would they take the chance of actual proximity to creatures like Snooki or Donald Trump when they could watch and listen from a safe distance? I think they're far more likely to tune in, listen, and make bad Uranus jokes. I'm sure they're going to skip us concluding that we're just not worth bothering with. And that's what I want to talk about today. Homo sapien means man the wise. So how did we become so unfathomably stupid? Before I get started on this topic, I know I'm going to open myself up to criticism by those who say it is wrong to call people who you disagree with on important issues or matters of taste stupid. I agree with you without any reservations. To each his own and all that. But sometimes there's just no other word that will do. If you believe that giving 10% of your paycheck to a guy who spends it on jets, mansions, and a stable full of fancy cars because he tells you he will pray for you to get rich, then you are stupid. I'm sorry, but no other word will cut it. I have this theory about willful stupidity. It's always a function of wanting to believe something is true, regardless of whether it is. But here's the good news. Stupidity, unlike other cognitive shortcomings, is treatable. You simply have to come to the right place for treatment. You're here. All you have to do is send me 10% of your paycheck that you were earmarking for Joel Osteen. It's that simple. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt famously said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." To that, I would add COVID-19, one-ply toilet paper, getting my dick caught in my zipper, and stupid people. Those are things that scare me much more than fear. Stupid people should be at the top of the list. I live much more in fear of stupid people than I do of violent criminals. Let me explain. I live on the coast of South Carolina. We fear, among other things, big hurricanes. Unlike Sharknado, we really can get hit by flying alligators. Imagine for a moment a discussion about a hurricane that's just hit with 20 inches of rain and damaging storm surge. And a guy in your golf group says, "This was one of the wettest hurricanes we have ever seen from the standpoint of water." Now, I suppose we could have experienced a really wet hurricane from the standpoint of wombat urine, but most of them are wet because of water. Now imagine the same water is the cause of wetness genius, suggesting that it would make sense to treat COVID-19 the same way you clean your countertops, by spraying Lysol disinfectant into your body. He thinks this makes perfect sense. Now imagine people knowing that these are the kind of thinking outside the brain ideas this guy has on a daily basis. For instance, Puerto Rico is an island surrounded by big water. Anyway, these people decide they want to put this guy in charge of enough nuclear firepower to blow up the earth 20 times over. And that, my friends, is why I am much more afraid of this particular stupid person than I am of fear itself. I don't even fear fear. I fear the shit that actually scares me. Donald Trump and his hardcore base scare me. Same guy, different day. A few days ago, President Trump was asked about voting by mail. He said, "I think mail-in voting is horrible. It's corrupt." The reporter then pointed out that he had recently voted by mail in the Florida election. He responded, "Sure, because I'm allowed to." Reporters are not allowed to put their knuckles in their mouth, and they're not permitted to say, "Wait, what?" Or, "Mr. President, with all due respect, do you have any idea how inane that response was?" Okay, I make it a point never to ridicule people who are dumb. They have actual limitations at the hardwiring level. Soft hardwiring is a design flaw. But people who embrace stupidity are fair game. The old aphorism, "you should know better," applies. The President of the United States is the most willfully stupid public figure I have ever had to bear witness to. He has gleefully adopted stupid as a way of life. He is unquestionably successful with it. It's helpful to think of him as a prosperity preacher for people who really wanted a Jesus sermon that blamed their lot in life on Mexicans. He deserves to be smacked in the back of the head for constantly and repeatedly acting stupid. Remember when your father smacked you in the back of the head when he caught you chasing your little brother around the yard with a fully loaded pooper scooper and he asked you if you were stupid? Same idea. Donald Trump is chasing the entire country with a fully loaded pooper scooper. To those of you who equate smart with making a lot of money, I want to call your attention to the Buick dealer who dresses up in a chicken suit to sell cars on TV. Last year, I wrote a short book about a scary phenomena I called cultural psychopathy. I explored how it was that it becomes culturally normal to suppress empathy and embrace cruelty. How did Germany and Japan happen at the individual level prior to World War II? And why would the Trump boys, or anyone else, spend money to travel to Africa to kill a grazing animal like a giraffe or an elephant for fun? How does killing for fun become a cherished part of our national culture that Norman Rockwell would paint about? I called this meme-type disease cultural psychopathy. And today I'm going to introduce you to the idea of cultural stupidity, which is often the first step on the road to cultural insanity. Cultural stupidity occurs when masses of people choose to believe something that's demonstrably false for the simple reason that they want it to be true. Demonstrably, of course, means it is possible to demonstrate to life forms who have the simple reasoning ability of a garden slug that something is complete bullshit. Cultural stupidity cuts across socioeconomic lines. I, for instance, am a graduate of one of the finest law schools in the country. But there are times when I want to believe I can force a golf ball 160 yards over a lake with a 7-iron. I belong to the golf culture, which is one of the dumbest cultures on the planet. I go ahead and take the shot, even though I have demonstrated on numerous occasions that I cannot make it, and my next shot always requires a snorkel. However, my cultural stupidity caused by the same I want to believe disease harms no one but me. Recently, Rush Limbaugh told his fans, who ironically love being referred to as ditto heads, that coronavirus was nothing more than the common cold. We can only guess how many of his own ditto heads he took out with this bit of willful stupidity. The fucking idiot may have killed his own listeners. President Trump believes that Clorox enemas followed by a UV light up the Hershey Highway will cure coronavirus. He just may succeed in reducing his own voting base. Here is how cultural stupidity takes a hold and gets traction. Everyone remembers the thousands of Muslims on the rooftop debacle. Donald Trump claimed that right after 9/11, he was watching TV and he saw thousands and thousands of New Jersey Muslims cheering for the 9/11 terrorists on their rooftops. The pesky problem for verification of this claim about what he saw on TV was that not a single news media outlet, including Fox, broadcasted or had any footage of such an event. None of them even recorded eyewitness accounts of Muslims cheering on New Jersey rooftops. They couldn't find anybody, and man, did they look. There are only three conclusions a rational mind can come to. 1, Donald Trump had a psychotic episode and cannot distinguish between actual events and delusions. 2, Donald Trump is a lying, racist demagogue. 3, Donald Trump was telling the truth, and every media outlet in the universe, from Al Jazeera to Fox News, is in on the conspiracy to hide the news footage that only Donald Trump saw. But the actual reason not one person claimed to have seen it on TV or even claimed to have seen it at all is, follow closely here, because it didn't fucking happen. There's more footage of Bigfoot than there is of cheering New Jersey Muslims after 9/11. Okay, just so we're clear, it's often impossible to prove a negative proposition. Take Bigfoot. If I'm asked to prove that Bigfoot doesn't exist, I probably can't do it. I can prove that the film is bullshit, but I can't prove he's out there hiding. However, I can prove that there was never any TV footage of cheering Muslims. Ergo, Trump could not have seen it. Doesn't matter. In a poll conducted months after Trump made the claim in 2015, 20% of America said it happened, and 38% of America said they weren't sure. The same number may well believe that the dark side of the moon is made of green cheese, and I confess I can't prove that it isn't. Cultural stupidity in a nutshell. The 20% will grow as more time passes, because those people will tell their friends they saw it, and their friends will believe it. And some of them will tell their friends they saw it. Why will they believe it? Because they want to. And they'll pass along this bullshit to their children, who will tell their friends that their parents saw it on the news. And when people once again go back and research and try and find the news footage that supported Trump's claim, and when they come up empty, you know what the response of these true believers will be? Well, that just proves it's true. Here, it's appropriate to say to them, wait, what? How can the fact that there's no evidence to support your assertion that it actually happened prove that it actually happened? Well, duh, it proves there was a conspiracy and that the media was in on it. You're just a prawn of the lamestream media. Don't bother correcting the guy, trying to tell him he meant to say pawn. He'll tell you he knows the difference. He doesn't. Folks, Do you know why when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, he was unable to find the green cheese? Hungry aliens ate it all. Or the whole moon landing was just a fake news hoax. Take your pick. This kind of reasoning is a hallmark example of mass cultural stupidity. And it proves that if people want to believe something is true, they will believe it no matter what you say to them or no matter what you show them. Let me pause here and clarify my position about Trump supporters, lest you get the impression that I believe all Trump people are stupid. I do not. I have dear friends who are Trump supporters. They are well-educated, smart, and had what they feel are legitimate reasons for voting for him. Some voted for him for no other reason than they couldn't stand Hillary. Some voted for him because they thought he's an outsider who'll shake things up. Some voted with their portfolios in mind, knowing that he'd do away with all those pesky environmental regulations. Some voted for him because of the immigration and abortion issues. None of these people are stupid. They're the people I call shoulder shruggers. They get together after a few beers and admit to each other that the man is a machine gun tweeting egotistical asshole, but they're making money and he sides with them on issues they consider important, like the Supreme Court and abortion. To them, Trump is what the Russians refer to as a useful idiot. I have it on good authority that Mitch McConnell says, wait, what did he say? Almost every day. So I want to be careful not to stuff all the Trumpers in the same idiot closet. Like most people, I've been guilty of using the adjectives dumb, ignorant, stupid, and moronic interchangeably when they really mean different things. Consider this podcast to be a formal apology. Throwing these terms around willy-nilly when I'm angry is evidence of sloppy critical analytics. The overlap between these concepts is undeniable, but we should all take some care before conflating them. Here's an example of a very difficult diagnosis. A guy in Florida recently attempted to jump off his boat onto the back of a large, formidable hammerhead shark to impress his buddies who had just been through a mind-numbing quantity of Bud Light and crystal meth. It's debatable whether drinking that much beer with meth actually makes a guy dumb, or he has to start out as an evolutionary mutation. But the point is that he was unable to objectively process the information that the hammerhead shark might bite him in half, and he couldn't do a proper risk-benefit analysis. Or he was able to process it, but thought it was more important in the grand scheme of things to become immortal in the minds of the group of morons he was with. I'm not, it should be noted, being critical of his decision, because had it gone correctly, the whole thing would have qualified as a net improvement by his removal from the Florida breeding gene pool. I can't decide if he was dumb or willfully stupid. I think the guy was sort of a hybrid life form. Okay, let's summarize what we've learned. People who are dumb have brains that do not function at levels that allow them to properly appreciate the fact that things with teeth often bite people who jump on them. It's a software processing problem due to a hardware inadequacy. Ignorant people are appreciably more complicated. They're fully capable of acting stupidly. Their brains might theoretically be able to process more complex information than their hopelessly half-wit dumb bunny brethren, but they may simply have not been properly exposed to necessary information, or they think it's wiser to pretend that the information that might help them understand these things does not exist. An ordinary ignoramus knows absolutely nothing about climate change, one way or another, but he's content to believe it's a Chinese hoax because Trump said so. A willful ignoramus takes a minute to read a synopsis of the scientific issues, possibly prepared for his junior high school daughter, and he decides it's bullshit because he likes sneering at people who drive Priuses. This is the exact same guy who carries around an oxygen bottle attached to a tube that goes up his nose because he continued smoking 2 packs of Marlboros a day after the Surgeon General told him he was going to die. The root of the word ignorant, not surprisingly, is the word ignore, which means to deliberately choose not to pay attention to something that's important, like basic principles of science. Let's say you're at a cocktail party with Oklahoma Senator James Inhofe, a man who steadfastly maintains that evolution and climate change are the propaganda tools of Satan. Perhaps he was raised as a disciple of Kenneth Copeland. Perhaps he's a product of the Oklahoma school system, ranked 41st in the nation, which explains why they keep electing this idiot. I suppose an argument may then be advanced that his ignorance is not willful. His fellow citizens and or his parents have simply decided to keep him in the dark, but he seems to like it there. I'm a lawyer, and when it comes to science, I usually yield to people who've studied the branches of science that I haven't, especially when it comes to matters that involve life or death or the survival of the planet. They are science literate, well-educated, and they have an expertise that I do not. For example, I accept that the physicists are correct when it comes to the idea of gravity. I don't understand all the intricacies and the nuances of gravity, but if 98% of the world's respected physicists tell me that if I step off the edge of a skyscraper, I would not be able to fly, and that such an action could cause me to have an unpleasant trip to the ground at approximately 127 miles per hour, the aptly named terminal velocity, it's safe to assume that they've come to a reasoned conclusion about such matters. In fact, there are lots of things that I don't know about or profess to have an expertise in. Cardiology, computer programming, the safe operation of nuclear power plants, and plumbing. I don't understand plumbing. When I have a plumbing problem, I call, wait for it, a plumber. Here's how I decide what side of a science issue to come down on. If my gallbladder is causing me problems, I'm going to go to a doctor who specializes in gallbladders. And if it needs to come out, I'm unlikely to seek the advice of either Senator Inhofe or Sean Hannity. Climate change, whether it's happening and whether it's a man-made phenomena, is a subject I need guidance on. Again, Senator Inhofe is not at the top of my list of experts. Senator Inhofe thinks climate change is a big fat hoax. Inhofe, I should mention, did receive a BA degree from the University of Tulsa in 1973, where he majored in something. He's a religious fundamentalist, a biblical literalist, and he also believes evolution is a hoax. He is the ranking member of the United States Senate Committee on the Environment. I hope you didn't have a mouthful of Bud Light when you heard that. Unlike the pointy-headed science types who are telling us that we're about to make our planet uninhabitable, the senator has actual real-world business experience, and it's hard to imagine a field of expertise that would make a man more qualified to educate us on climate change than business experience or biblical literalism. Everybody knows that belief in climate change is bad for business and for biblical literalism. Inhofe worked as a real estate developer and for an insurance company, eventually becoming the president of Quaker Life, which went into receivership under his command. Anyway, here is what the senator had to say about the subject of climate change in a recent interview with the Voice of Christian Youth America. Well, actually, Genesis chapter 8, verse 22 says that as long as the earth remains, there will be springtime and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, day and night. My point is, God is still up there. The arrogance of people to think that we, human beings, would be able to change what he is doing in the climate is, to me, outrageous. Hard to argue with that kind of reasoned scientific analysis, but I'm going to give it a shot. Think of the Earth as one of those snow globes that are floating all over the place at Christmas. I believe they're made by the same company that markets the Chia Pet Jesus and sold to people who will buy almost anything at Christmas time. Here's one I just found on Amazon that has a nice nativity scene. Holy Family Nativity of Christ to 3/8 inch religious Christmas snow globe. And here's why I'm bothering you about it. You guys have all seen the snowflakes inside. They float around in some sort of liquid stuff. And here's the astounding part. No matter how much you shake the thing, the snow will not come out. It flies around trapped by the glass. Now, fortunately, Joseph and Mary have not seen fit to build a fire to keep baby Jesus warm even though it's snowing. Here comes the science part. What do you think would happen if Mary and Joseph built a fire in this confined space? I'll give you a moment. Actually, I will happily extend the time to 5 minutes for Senator Inhofe and anyone who voted for him. That offer will necessarily extend to the voting public of the great state of Oklahoma, whose schools would probably lose in its academic contest with Kabul, Afghanistan. This explains, 1, why I had to extend the time for an answer, and 2, how this guy was elected to the United States Senate. If you guessed that the nativity scene would become a kind of hell on earth temperature-wise, congratulations, you have demonstrated that you are smarter than the average kid. I speak here of little goats. You are smarter than that kind of a kid. For those of you who became hopelessly confused about what this has to do with climate change, the Earth, or the Earth's atmosphere, and the fact that we spew countless billions of tons of hot, dirty shit into it every hour of every day, and that hot, dirty shit becomes trapped and starts to warm things up, you should know that I'm a patient man and willing to give you one additional science-type analogy. The Dutch oven has a lid and holds hot air in. But that isn't why I brought it to your attention. I brought it to your attention so you'd be able to distinguish between this kind of Dutch oven and the other kind. The other kind of Dutch oven is created by an amorous and fun-loving male human, therefore qualifying as man-made, who may have eaten 3 bowls of Texas 5-alarm chili and then breaks wind under the covers as many times as he can while his wife is in brushing her tooth and getting ready for bed. Then when she gets in bed, he suddenly, without any warning, pulls the covers over her head, trapping the gases that he is exceptionally proud of, and he yells, "Dutch oven!" This is also known as foreplay among the Oklahoma Walmart set. The effect of this greenhouse-type event can only be described as breathtaking. I think the science principle at play in the Dutch oven phenomena has to do with the fact that hot air, which contains the expelled flatulence, tends to get trapped by the dome created by the covers, thereby resulting in a rise in the temperature of the air and the wife in the enclosed space under the covers. She gets hot, but not the kind of hot that leads anywhere good. Global warming in a nutshell. All of which brings me to the word moronic, another misused insult which was originally used to designate behavior in adult males who failed to advance in maturity beyond the age of 7. You probably remember your son at that age. Boys tend to act more stupid than you hope they really are. It's part of being 7. They'll often repeat the same toilet word like poop over and over again in a totally nonsensical manner and engage in compulsive name calling. For some reason, a guy calling a woman by the name Pocahontas comes to mind. Sometimes, the moron will say something like, "Did you hear me call her Pocahontas?" Ha! I called her Pocahontas. That's funny, isn't it? At that point, with a 7-year-old, it's appropriate to tell them to stop because it isn't funny anymore and it wasn't funny the first time they said it. Then they'll pout and sometimes call you a stupid name with poopy in it. At that point, I recommend you yell and send the kid to his room for a timeout. If only we could send Donald Trump to his room on Rikers Island, like forever. Postscript. I wanted to keep this chat as close to 30 minutes as I could, but in the past 2 days, our president decided to help me out. No good deed should go unrewarded. Back to back, his Trumpness used the phrases, "I have absolute power," and "I'm going to adjourn Congress," causing my lefty friends, and I have many of them, to scream "fascist fucker" from the rooftops of New Jersey. They became hysterical, and while it's true that this may sound like a guy who has fascist sentiments, in this case, it's not. They are simply statements that prove beyond a reasonable doubt his gargantuan stupidity. Trump is not a fascist. That would require, 1, that he understood what a fascist was, and 2, that he actually believed in something. He is incapable of either because, wait for it, he's stupid. Donald Trump believes in nothing aside from gratification of his own insatiable need for glory. He's an unconscious nihilist. He believes in nothing. But nihilism is an affirmative belief. It's an adoption of a way of looking at the world, and Donald Trump is too stupid to organize his thoughts into a worldview. Again, the immortal words of Walter Sobchak from The Big Lebowski come to mind. Nihilist? Fuck me. Say what you want about the tenets of National Socialism. At least it's an ethos. So, rest easy, liberals. He ain't a fascist. He thinks ethos is a sauce that goes on a Greek sandwich. See you next time.